Welcome to The Explainer. You know how it is in a crisis. Information comes at you fast. It's a flood of headlines, alerts, and nonstop breaking news. Well, today, we're stepping right into the middle of one. We've taken a chaotic, real-time news feed from March 30, 2026, and we're going to boil it all down into a clear briefing on the escalating Iran conflict. Let's try to make some sense of the noise.
So to really get a handle on this crisis, we need a roadmap. We're going to start at the very epicenter. That's the direct standoff between the U.S. and Iran. From there, we'll zoom out and see how this thing is pulling in the entire region. Then we'll examine the devastating human and economic costs, analyze the information war that's being fought, and finally, look at the tripwires that could define what happens next.
Okay, so let's dive right in. At the absolute heart of this conflict is the direct confrontation between the United States and Iran. And on this particular day, the threats, well, they reached a boiling point.
President Trump laid out the stakes with this incredibly direct ultimatum. And this is absolutely key. He's not just talking about military targets here. He's explicitly threatening to destroy the very infrastructure that keeps Iran running. We're talking its power, its water, and its main oil hub. This one statement sets a seriously volatile tone for the entire crisis.
And when you look at what each side is demanding publicly, the gap between them is just huge. The U.S. wants the street reopened, and they're already talking about making a deal with some kind of new regime. Iran, on the other hand, is saying any deal has to guarantee its dignity and security, while its military is threatening to hit the homes of U.S. and Israeli officials. There is just no middle ground here at all.
And, these aren't just empty threats. The news feed makes it very clear there is a serious military buildup going on. Thousands of American troops are deploying, and there are reports of plans for actual ground operations. In response, Iran's parliament speaker issues what you can only call a chilling invitation, declaring that his country's forces are literally waiting for American soldiers.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a two-player game anymore. Let's zoom out and really see how this core conflict is rapidly spilling across the entire region.
The chaos is just spreading like wildfire. In Lebanon, Israel is expanding its ground invasion, and UN peacekeepers are getting caught in the crossfire. Over in Kuwait, a vital power and water plant gets attacked. Across northern Israel, an oil refinery is burning, and homes are being hit with cluster munitions. And all the while, Syria is condemning Israel for grabbing new territory. This has become a true multi-front war.
And yep, the conflict has officially gone global. You've got Turkey now shooting down Iranian munitions. Iran is pointing the finger at Ukraine, accusing it of active participation in the war. Even in Europe, Spain has closed its airspace to U.S. warplanes. And maybe the most significant move of all, China is testing the blockade, sending the first container ships through the Strait of Hormuz since all this fighting started.
So with a war spreading this fast and this wide, the consequences are, well, they're profound. Let's take a look at what the live feed is telling us about their real cost, both in human lives and in economic turmoil.
The first thing that hits you is this grim number from the source. In just 5 weeks, the death toll across the region has already passed 3,000 people. It's just a stark reminder of the intense violence that's unfolding on the ground.
And if we break down those numbers, you can really see where the fighting has been the most intense. Based on the reports we have, the vast majority of casualties are concentrated in 2 places, Iran and Lebanon.
But it's not just the death toll, right? There's a massive humanitarian crisis unfolding. UNICEF is reporting that 1 out of every 5 people in Lebanon has been forced from their home. The source paints this heartbreaking picture of children living in a displacement camp that's been set up inside Beirut's city stadium.
And you can bet this economic shockwave is being felt all over the world. The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical artery for global energy, has sent oil prices soaring by nearly 60%. This affects everything from the price of gas in Australia to how global stock markets are doing.
Okay, so parallel to the actual shooting war, there's a whole other war going on, an information war. Let's turn to the diplomatic front, where public statements are basically weapons, and the truth itself is a battlefield. On the diplomatic front, look at this. The two sides are presenting completely different realities. President Trump is claiming great progress in talks with a new, more reasonable regime. But Iran's foreign ministry comes right out and says, flatly, that no direct negotiations are even happening. One side's reporting a breakthrough, the other says there's nothing to even talk about.
You can see U.S. officials are really pushing this new regime narrative hard. Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggests there are these new voices inside Iran communicating with the U.S., but his language is pretty cautious. We're going to test it. We are hopeful. It feels like an attempt to project optimism and maybe, just maybe, sow some division inside Iran. But then, boom, just a few hours later, the official Iranian spokesperson pushes back directly. He confirms they have received messages through intermediaries, but just dismisses them as excessive, unrealistic, and unreasonable. It's a direct public takedown of the American narrative.
And, of course, looming over everything is the nuclear question. This war is pushing Iran's parliament to actually consider pulling out of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. At the exact same time, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirms that a key Iranian nuclear facility has been severely damaged in an attack, taking it completely offline. The stakes just could not be higher.
So, after we've pieced together all this news from just one day, where does it all lead? Let's look at the road ahead, because it is filled with triggers for an even bigger conflict.
And the immediate future looks incredibly tense. There's a controversial vote happening in the Israeli parliament today. Israel's ground campaign in Lebanon keeps expanding. Iran says it's totally braced for a U.S. invasion. And hanging over absolutely everything is President Trump's deadline for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And that's just 1 week away.
So the big takeaway from this one-day snapshot is just the sheer volatility of it all. Every single front is active, every threat feels credible, and a major deadline is looming. The entire region is balanced on a knife's edge. And filtering all the noise from this single day of news leaves us with one final, really unsettling question. What happens next?